Hi, everyone. I'm Jim O'Malley. I'm just an average dude who loves to drink wine. And while I currently have my sommelier level one certification, which essentially qualifies me to work behind a bar at Chili's, later this month, I'll be taking my Somm level two test, which could put me in a neighborhood wine bar near you. So be warned. So I'm doing this presentation because I have a lot of free time on my hands this summer, and I'm using a lot of it to learn about wines from across the world. But I also believe that wine is amazing, and I hope I can convince you to think the same if you don't already. So stick with me for the next 10 minutes. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about wine so you can sound educated but not pretentious when drinking the Jesus juice. So first, what is wine? At its core, it's just fermented grape juice. That's it. Grapes, yeast, and some time in a big vessel. Now, there are two main types of grapes. We have black grapes that have dark skins and white grapes. Hopefully you're tracking so far. So red wine is made by fermenting the grape juice with the skins. So this is going to give the wine a darker color. It's going to give it tannin and some more structure. Now, white wine is usually made by removing these skins early, which is going to focus on the pulp, the water, and the sugars of the grape. So the development of a wine is really a method, not a required conclusion based on the grape itself. So black grapes can make white wine. A good example of this would be white Zinfandel. Now, rosé, everyone's favorite patio pounder, is basically the compromise. It's just a little bit of skin contact before removing them, and that's going to give a wine a pink or a salmon hue. And then there's sparkling wine, which is the extra special one at the party, the belle of the ball. Here, winemakers are going to take things a step further. They're going to add a little extra sugar. They're going to trap the carbon dioxide from a second fermentation, and then suddenly, boom, bubbles. That's how you get that iconic pop of a bottle of champagne. Now, thinking of grapes, they're pretty high maintenance. They typically like warm, sunny days and cool nights. So thinking of somewhere like Napa Valley, that's going to have 80 to 90 degree days in the summer, but cool off to 50 degrees at night. That's really ideal for a lot of grapes. However, certain grapes are only going to be able to grow in other types of climates. So for example, Pinot Noir, which is a notoriously fickle grape, can only grow in a cooler, usually coastal climate to thrive. So think like the Oregon coast. Now, geographically, grapes really only grow in a narrow band of the world between about 30 and 50 degrees latitude, both north and south of the equator. So this is the Goldilocks zone for wine. Not too hot, but not too cold. And that's why we see a lot of the major wine regions clustered in places like France, Spain, and Italy, the so-called Old World. But then also in California, New Zealand, Argentina, Australia. So this is known as the New World, or Nuevo Mundo for my Latin American friends. Now, once a year in fall, wherever the region may be, the grapes are harvested off the vines. This harvest period also allows children with exceptionally large feet to begin the stomping process. So after these grapes are crushed, a few months later, science is going to do its thing and we'll be able to drink some wine. Some wines, typically red ones, will be bottled for months to even years. Now, each bottle of wine is going to encapsulate the struggle of what the grape went through. So a grape with wrath, if you will. All right, so ready to grow some grapes. Then you may want to pack your bags for Italy, France, or Spain. They've basically been running the wine world for a few hundred or 1,000 years. But don't sleep on places like Germany, Chile, Croatia, and the US. They're making incredible wines, just with a little less global hype. But all of that is changing. Today, you're going to find wine being made in places like Japan and India. And interestingly, in southern England, they're now making wonderful sparkling wines that were previously too cold a climate to do so. The quality is getting better every year in places like this. So while wine may have old roots, it's definitely expanding into new territory, especially as climates change. The other handicap that the old world has is they have a lot more rules in how they develop wine and what grapes they can use and how much they can water. So for example, there's places in France that are not allowed to use any artificial watering at all. So if it doesn't rain that year, you're just going to have a very, very dry, really ripened grape. Now, thinking of the grapes in the world, there are over 1,000 of them, but about 40% of everything we drink comes from just 6 grapes. So these noble grapes you're going to see over and over again. On the red side, we have Cabernet Sauvignon. This is the king. It's big, it's powerful. Then there's Merlot, the trusty sidekick, which is a little softer and smoother, usually paired with a Cabernet in a blend. And then Pinot Noir, which is the lighter, more delicate wine. You can even see the appearance profile in this image being a little bit lighter. On the white side, the big three are Sauvignon Blanc, which is the glorious, very dry, perfect sipping wine. And then Chardonnay, which I think has gotten a bad rap. This one's really not just for your grandmother anymore. There's a lot of really amazing Chardonnays and many different styles that can be out there, as well as Rieslings, which is the most popular grape in Germany and also has a really flexible profile. So after this starting six, you've got a really deep bench. Grapes like Syrah, Sangiovese, the Argentinian all-star Malbec, Spanish flair for Tempranillo, and then there's Zinfandel. Plus on the white side, we have Chenin Blanc in Alvarinho, which is a Portuguese favorite, as well as one of my personal favorites, Asertico, which is a white wine from Greece. So armed with these grapes, time, different fermentation and mixing methods, a winemaker can make infinite amounts of styles of wine. And as a consumer, we tend to gravitate to the names of wine we like. So that might be Sauvignon Blanc or Merlot. But when we get confident enough in what we actually like to drink, we might start putting characteristics in the wine we like, especially in a place that you might not be familiar with what wine's on the menu. So let's go through a few questions. Do you like dry or sweet wines? Do you like a light or a full body? A light wine might be good for a work lunch, whereas a full-bodied Cabernet, you may need a nap after. Do you tend to like wine that has high acidity, maybe like a lemonade, or a low acidity, something like toast? Do you prefer something really fruity, jammy, or cherry-like? Or do you like more earthy notes, something like a pepper or vanilla? So I'll describe two types of wine I like, just to give you an idea. First, it's a warm afternoon here in Italy, and I'm getting ready for an aperitivo. So I'm going to look for a dry, something not sugary sweet, crisp, lemony, citrus, light body white wine. A Pinot Gris, or Grigio in the United States, would likely be on the menu here and would totally fit the bill for the circumstance. But tonight, we're having a big red pasta dinner. So my preference here would be something that's fruit forward, medium to full body, bigger wine. And this is probably a wine that you wouldn't be able to see your thumb from the other side of the glass. It also feel heavier in your mouth and have a drying sensation. It's those tannins talking. And a wine like this would probably overwhelm a smaller dinner dish like a salad. So at home, I'd probably opt for a Cabernet Sauvignon, but here in Sicily, I really like a wine called Nero di Avola. So if you want to pause here and just think about how you'd order wine in either situation, feel free. Now that we've ordered our wine, what do we actually do to enjoy this miracle of nature? Well, we use our senses. We're going to look, smell, and taste. So first, smelling. Give it a swirl. Stick your nose in the glass. Don't overthink it. All you're thinking of is, what does this remind me of? Is it fruity? Is it flowers? Is it spices? Maybe something earthy. There are no wrong answers, just different reference points. And then we taste. What we're really looking for is a few things that we already talked about. Is it sweet or dry? For the body of the wine, is it light like a skim milk or full like a whole milk? For a red, how much tannin with that drying feeling in your gums is there? Also, how much alcohol is there? Is it deep? Does it burn deep in your chest like a whiskey, or do you just have a slight taste in the front of your mouth? I'm trying a red wine here, Nero di Avola from Sicily, and you can see that it's a little bit lighter in hue, maybe a medium body type wine here. That definitely has some fruit flavors and also maybe a little bit of secondary notes of rocky minerality, and that comes from the mountain range area where this wine grape is planted. But I'm going to give it a whirl. Very good. Definitely some cherry and red fruits. So cheers to you on that tasting. Now, wine and food have been paired together throughout wine's very illustrious history. It is a historical fact that Cleopatra loved Chardonnay with her sushi from the Nile, and Napoleon drank Bordeaux with his steak and frites in France. So think of wine like a great musical duo with food. Independently, both are great, but better, much better when they're together. Sonny needed share and Oates needed whole because otherwise he would just be horse food. So some simple guidelines I would give, and I don't say rules because wine rules are dumb. You want to match the weight of the wine to the power of the food. So a light Grenache is probably going to get bullied by a big plate of ribs, whereas a light salad would probably be a perfect fit for something like a Sauvignon Blanc or Sancerre. Think of a lot of your white wines like a splash of lemon with your food. Their high acidity is going to be a great match with fish, vegetables, or salads. But if the white wine is less acidic and more sweet, perhaps, maybe like an oaky Chardonnay, it may be better to fit with something that's really cheesy, like a cheese plate. Now, lighter reds like Pinot Noir are going to be great with earthy mushroom type dishes, whereas a big bold cab is going to pair better with something like my red big pasta meal. I like to think of geography here too. So if you're serving a Mediterranean type dinner, lots of fish and fresh vegetables, I would lean to something like an Assiterco from Greece or an Albarino, both coastal wines that are going to have a little bit of sea salt and minerality that are basically going to be perfect pairs for your fish dish. But if you're having something like a steak, reach for a Malbec from Argentina. Big pasta dinners, go to Italy's famous Barolo or Chiantis that are widely available and very, very good. And when you're hosting a dinner party, it's typically going to flow from a lighter wine to start to a heavier one as the meal progresses. You would never really want to start with the biggest, boldest bottle. It would overwhelm everything else you have. But with wine, remember the most important question of all. Do you actually like it? Because at the end of the day, wine can be analyzed, scored, and debated, but the best wine in the world is the one that you like the most. All of that, the sun, the soil, the centuries of history, ends in one simple moment, and that's a glass of wine and your opinion of it. So thanks for watching, and cheers to your next glass of wine.